Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Cassie and I with another post-election political astrology video. And we're going to focus on, one specific person and the USA as well, because of a lot of fears that are out there. And so we're going to look at the full moon and the aspects coming up, and then look at April the 20th, which is the date we keep getting asked about. But before we do, I'm Louise Edington, Cosmic Owl Astrology. I do consultations. I have a private membership community, The Nest. You can find that on my website, louiseeddington.com. And I also have a YouTube membership and a paid Substack membership that gets one call a month, Ask Me Anything calls. So please support our work, Kathy.
I'm Kathy Biehl. My website is empowermentunlimited.net. I have podcasts for every week, every new and full moon, every month, a lot of other information. My YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian. I have a Patreon, patreon.com/Kathy Biehl, where I have 30 to 60-second quickie daily forecasts, among many other things, including an Ask Me Almost Anything monthly event as well, which is starting to get nicely populated. So that's about me.
Okay, so I'm sure, Kathy, you've got your usual roundup. So
I do. Now, the news has been really hard to corral. So I'm just going to point out a few big areas that are playing out what we said. Now, we said last week we had a timeline for Venus, which rules money, meeting up with Saturn, which brings constraint. That first time that happened was on the 7th, and we didn't know. There would be something that was, I don't know, would it be a pushback to the tariffs? Would there be something doubling down? Well, guess what? Both. Both happened. There's a bipartisan legislation in Congress. Rand Paul behind this. It's really one of those, the world has tilted on its axis moments, trying to put constraints on tariffs. One of the surviving Koch brother and Leonard Leo both filed suit on Monday, on the 7th, on the very day of the Venus-Saturn conjunction,
that's
against
big.
some of the tariffs.
I've not even seen that in the news much, but that's big.
And it's big. So
Yeah.
the person who is responsible, they're big right-wing drivers, and Leonard Leo is the guy behind the Heritage Foundation. He's the one that got all the most recent people onto the Supreme Court. So the fact that they filed suit on that day, Saturn being suit, is really, really significant. And then, of course, the person who issued the tariffs has been going back and forth, but then he started doubling down. And it looks like maybe they're gone, maybe they're not. Nope, they're back, they're big. And in response, the European Union is imposing some things, and China just, I think he just raised the China sanctions to 125%.
Yes.
It's going to continue. Venus is sitting in this one spot as it turns direct, and we'll give the timeline again. But this is going to be going on for a few weeks. Now we also have the added issue of the prospect of a terrific amount of insider trading having gone on. The House Democrats are investigating this, and given some things that are going on in the chart that we'll look at, I will not be surprised if this doesn't also translate into the New York State Attorney General bringing suit for insider trading, because she's in the jurisdiction with the stock exchanges. So there's that. Okay, other things that play out: Venus, Saturn, women limitation, the Pisces, lesser ones, limitation. The House passed the SAVE Act, which really presents all kinds of hurdles for voting to married women who have changed their last name, and transgendered people who whose documentation doesn't match the name on their birth certificate.
And married gay couples who took their partner's name. I have,
Oh, yeah, it's true. If your name currently is not what it was on your birth certificate or on your real ID. Well,
Mhm.
on your birth certificate, you have a terrific burden to be able to vote now. Now, whether this passes in the Senate or not, but it fits the astrology of Venus Saturn, then it passed there. Also, the House passed a budget slashing Medicaid. That also fits the Venus Saturn. So, changing gears, we've been saying that there are ongoing changes in alliances, and this would be a feature of the Libra full moon, which is on the 12th. And Illinois is entering into trade agreements directly with the United Kingdom.
Mhm.
That's kind of different. And another way of looking at changes in alliances, the New Republic has reported that guess who has sent troops to Panama?
Mhm.
Okay, how's that going to
And
do?
Hegseth has just come back from there as well, I think. I
Right,
saw.
so something up there.
Mm.
And then we have what's been going on with the courts. That's kind of a back and forth and back and forth. The Supreme Court did order the return of the man who was sent to an El Salvadoran prison who has no reason whatsoever to be there. They ordered him to be returned, and the people were all up in arms because the Supreme Court sent the Venezuelan the Venezuelans who were supposedly gang members who had all been thrown back. The Supreme Court threw that back to the lower courts to determine whether they fell under the Alien Enemies Act, and two separate lower courts decided this week, no, they don't. They
Yeah.
don't fall under the act that gave the authority for doing that. So um, that's big. All right. So ongoing, and the whole issue with the tariffs is going to be with us for some time, and definitely the ramifications on the economy with what is coming up astrologically. Before I go through the next week or so timeline, are there any events you would like to add, Louise, that you think
I
fit what
don't.
we've been
I don't.
saying?
I don't. I think you've covered all the ones I've noticed. I would like to share this, and I'm going to post this in as a community post on my YouTube, Cosmic Owl Astrology, so people can just look at it or they can screenshot it now. To my mind, this is sums up the best advice I could ever give about how to deal with what's happening rather than freak out. Okay. I prefer not to use his name, so whatever you want to call him. Remember that it's a regime and he's not acting alone. Do not argue with those who support him. Focus on his policies, not his mental state. Don't go diagnosing that this early whatever, we don't know. Keep your message positive. They want the country to be angry and fearful because this is the soil from which their darkest policies grow. And we've been trying to say this, but I just love how this is summed up. No more helpless, hopeless talk. No more we're doomed kind of thing. Support artists and the arts. Huge for that
More
one.
about that. More about that in a
Yes.
minute.
Be careful not to spread fake news. Check what you share. Take care of yourselves. We're always saying this. And 10, resist. I prefer rise up. But anyway, but when you post or talk about him, don't assign his actions to him. Assign them to the administration or the regime or whatever. This will have several effects because the legislators will either have to take responsibility for their association or stand up for what some of them don't like. He will not get the focus of attention he craves. I just thought that was such a great post and worth sharing because you can tell by the comments we get on our videos that people, and I understand the freak out, but that's what they want. So anyway.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about what is coming up astrologically. All right, Venus is retrograde still as we're recording this. She stations direct on the 12th, and effectively from the 7th when she met with Saturn, retrograde Monday the 7th, until the she'll meet with Saturn again on the 24th. So there's an arc for you right there of Venus Saturn issues. And she will sit at the degree of her direct station until the 17th. Both of these are really technical ways of saying that all of the issues, whatever it's meant in your life, whatever you've seen in the news of Venus conjunct Saturn, and let's throw the North Node in as well, uh,
Hmm.
are basically around for most of the rest of the month. Okay, so that's part of the framework. On the 12th, she stations direct at the Libra full moon. Depends on where you are on the globe. Some parts it's the 12th, some parts it's the 13th.
And of
Libra
course,
full.
that's Venus sign. So, this
Right.
is
Yeah, she
like
rules
work.
it. And
Yeah.
she is in an adjustment aspect to the moon, and the
Hmm.
moon is in our harmonious aspect with Uranus, the disruptor, the change agent. So I would expect lots of alliances, lots of agreements, lots of things to shift, lots of relationships to hit a point of, you know what, I'm done with this,
Hmm.
and moving on, or the ground rules shifting really radically. This goes personally and what we're seeing out in the world. Now, a
Hmm.
bunch of important things happen next week. The communication mode gets out of the fog, and we have our first planet meeting with Neptune in Aries next
Hmm.
week. So Mercury enters Aries on the 16th, and on the 17th, Mercury meets with Neptune. We had a Mercury Neptune conjunction at the end of Pisces on March 29th. This one
Hmm.
is now at the very first degree of the zodiac. It is a point of creation, of something just rising up. You may get a sense of what this new phase means for you. We may see much greater um, outspokenness and standing up, like we all find our own equivalent of Cory Booker within ourselves and speak out. And this is happening as another round of protests are building, which will be on the 19th. So I would expect those to be even louder. Maybe they're not going to be as calm as the ones on April 5th. Um,
Though I would suggest, please, if you are involved in the protests, like you encourage calm and peace because of what else is coming up. So we don't want to give anybody any excuses, shall we say?
And here's what's going
Yeah.
to start making it another reason why they might not be so calm, or where you might not be so calm,
Mm.
is on the 18th, Mars, the planet that rules our drive, enters Leo, and it will be exactly the spot it was on, oh, isn't this an interesting date? November 5th. So, and as it does this, it's going to be fueling Mercury and Neptune. So just know that you're going to feel like you've come back online, fiery impulses in the sense that you must do something. Anything you want to say about that combo before I go on to the next big thing?
Well, I just say, I believe that once we're aware of the things that we can choose how we respond to them. And Leo is also about joy and fun. So, dress up and go and, make a sign that's really snarky if you're going out protesting and have some fun with it. Be creative, which is like more Leo instead of
Very
like,
true.
yeah.
I
Hmm.
also think I'm going to go on the record here of there's going to be a lot more open talk about what actually happened on November 5th once
Yeah.
this happens, and especially by the 19th, because the 19th, the sun moves into Taurus. We'll all be really focused on resources, money, the economy. Mars is going to be in a square, which is like a shoving match relationship with that. People aren't going to just sit by and let things happen. There may start to be some very dramatic action taken as a result of the economic gamesmanship that's been going on. That's also the anniversary of what's called, or in legend, in poetry, I think Ralph Waldo Emerson referred to the shot heard round the world, which was when the battles of Concord and Lexington took place, setting off the Revolutionary War in 1775. There were earlier battles before them, but this is the one that has been encapsulated in poetry. And interestingly, this date, April 19th, has been selected for massive, massive artists, protests, creative protests all over the country. And I will put a link. A friend of mine has been running this, and he has tremendous ideas. It doesn't matter what your form of creativity is. It could be reading books to kids. It could be writing a song and releasing it. It could be dressing up as a clown. He has many, many ideas. Abbetuck.com, ABBETUCK.com. Put it in the description box. On that date, when on the 19th, when Mars moves, I'm sorry, when the sun moves into Taurus, Mars then is in cahoots with Neptune. So next week we have Mercury fusing with Neptune and Aries, and then Mars entering a fiery mode and going along with it. So I think you're going to feel, we're all going to feel our own connection to what our sense of spiritual warriorism is. And I'm using that term deliberately, and have it just rise up and take action. Very dramatic, very playful, very expressive action. That's just taking it to the 19th. All right. So on the 20th, there are three big things happening on the 20th. And two of them involve the planets that will have just ended their retrogrades. So know that next week we're going to start feeling things moving forward. Mercury will not only be moving forward, but changing signs. Venus will be sitting kind of in, I mean, she'll be basically in the same place, but we'll sense stuff moving. No, by the 19th, she will have moved. So on the 20th, Venus is in a sextile or an opportunity aspect with Uranus. Sudden breakthroughs, relationship changes, something coming about in a very unexpected way, possibly having to do with money, possibly having to do with what's been happening to people with these various pieces of legislation that have been putting burdens on people. And there could actually be something really shocking that affects a whole bunch of people with this, or awakening. There's a better word for it, awakening. At the same time, Mercury, our thinking, messaging, modes of communication, information that's flying around, is also in an opportunity aspect with Pluto. This is a recipe for massive revelations, for really, really important stuff getting out into the world. And it's a great time to have confrontations that maybe you haven't had the nerve to have. So this is definitely a speaking truth to power moment. The sun, and then the sun and Mars have their finally hit their something's got to give, something's got to move moment of the square. And then within a few days on the 23rd, I don't want to take it much further out than that, the sun has the same kind of slammy bammy with Pluto in Aquarius. So people aren't going to be sitting and taking things. They're not going to be sitting quietly and taking things. It's just a question of where they go. So very, very active week. A lot of stuff moving ahead that has been percolating, or maybe holding us, weighting us down. And just know that we're moving out of the fog. We're moving out of the swamp. We're moving out of the, oh my God, who stole my brain kind of vibe that people have been in, and catching fire and starting to get up and do things.
Yeah, definitely. And I most people know I do this Venus retrograde class. Some of you are in it. It's definitely been this period of kind of going within and rebirthing something from the inside out. And so, I'm feeling it already though, this kind of push to kind of, do something, say something more, And I think people are starting to feel it already, even though Venus doesn't station direct till tomorrow. But I think we're starting to emerge from it already. And the full moon will shine a big old light on what is coming up for you that you want to speak up about. So there you go.
Right. And if there's something that you have outgrown, or that it's hit its sell-by date in your life,
Mm,
it's going to be really easy to just, oops, moving on. I'm watching this in a lot of lot of long-term unions.
Yeah,
Lot.
but friendships and kind of unions, as in partnerships, as well. There's one particular um, friendship that was a good friendship. It just hasn't. It just doesn't work anymore, and so it's just disappearing. Really, it doesn't mean you have to have conflict or confrontation. Um,
Mm-mm.
they're just ending. So anyway, which chart are we going to start on?
Should we start with what might be happening tomorrow
With
with the
the
full moon
hmm
okay.
sure. Okay, so I've just done the chart for the full moon, so let's have a look at this. And it doesn't say full moon, but this is the moment of the full moon, and Venus stations direct, like I think it's like 20 minutes after or something. I can't remember the time, but on this full moon. So this is the full moon, 23 degrees. And it's really square to Mars, and making various other aspects that you can see. Both of us have done, our own separate videos for how this might apply to you personally. But Kathy mentioned this one already. The moon is making this aspect of adjustment to Venus, and Venus is the ruler of the moon in Libra. And I find this quite significant as well, because when Venus went retrograde on March the 1st at 10 Aries, the moon was conjunct Venus in Aries. The moon and Venus are definitely kind of working together in some ways if you look at the ongoing cycles. So this adjustment right at the end of her retrograde on a full moon fulfillment is very significant. Plus Venus is also exalted in the sign of Pisces. So this is, the moon likes being in Libra, Venus likes being in Pisces. So this is a very strong full moon, very creatively, but also for kind of, that kind of divine feminine energy, whatever you want to call it, rising up, the energy of, no, we want to kind of do things differently, that quincunx. Anyway, your take on it.
Well, it's also that Venus is also sextile or in an opportunity aspect to Uranus and Taurus,
Mm-hmm,
which
mm-hmm.
is definitely playing out with absolute economic
Oh,
chaos right now, and
absolutely.
affecting many, many, many people. That's there. I'd also point out that interestingly, there's a masculine slash feminine vibe in this too, because Venus is conjunct Saturn and they're both trine Mars, which is like just the flow, shunk. And the sun is conjunct Chiron. Actually, the sun is in a sandwich between Chiron and Eris.
Mm-hmm.
So there are massive what's a way of putting that Chiron with the sun is like autonomy issues, wounds of self-direction, self-determination, and I always say that Chiron in Aries is toxic masculinity, and we're certainly seeing some of that going on right now. So
It's I always think Chiron and Aries has both been revealing the toxic masculinity and giving the opportunity to heal it. So I always see Chiron as both the wound and the key to healing. And Chiron is treading new ground now as well. We're really moving out of a crazy time. It's going to take time to unfold, but we really are moving into kind of new ground. Eris is also at 25 degrees with Saturn and Uranus. And Saturn and Uranus have just had this exact um, aspect of opportunity, which is, a big aspect for them because it's a closing of a big cycle. So, all of these things are, how could I things are going to start just changing. It's almost too, there's so many things that are really kind of shifting. The nodes are still at the same degree that they've been at right through the eclipses and things. They are not moved yet. Things are going to emerge. I can't believe I chose emergence as my word of the year. And I know it's tough, but Saturn is also about patience, right? Saturn takes its time because it is Father Time. And this is saying things are going. Saturn is going to move forward into Aries. Venus is going to meet Saturn again and then cross that North Node again. This is all, the North Node will stay in Pisces, but they're going to move away from each other. All of this is going to move away. And so, I know that's kind of a lot, but they're all speaking to each other. Look at these aspects, and Mars, of course, was retrograde, and now is Venus has been aspecting Mars over and over again. They'll be heading towards a new cycle as Venus picks up speed after she goes direct. We're moving into, I would call it, the creative stage of dealing with what's been occurring, and things are going to start coming to light. But I've always had this feeling that it's kind of got this, if it's up to be, it's up to me kind of thing. But that means each individual starting to stand up and do what they can. Yeah.
And there's one other there's something else in the chart that speaks to how how this proceeds. There's an exact trine between Jupiter in the ninth in Gemini and Pallas Athena in Aquarius in the fifth. Um, Jamie Raskin of the House and Adam Schiff of the Senate have been running shadow hearings on various crimes, and so there's like a duality of government going on with Jupiter in Gemini. Also, isn't there something about the People's Congress or some, which would be Pallas in Aquarius, or something about also bringing people into the general people into the fold of how this is going to proceed. So that's embedded in this chart. And if you can put this around the chart of he who shall not be named,
Yeah,
you can see
absolutely.
some very, very interesting things because
I
that,
just
yeah, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add one thing to to the Jupiter Pallas Athena thing. People are being encouraged more and more to have these town halls with the empty chair town halls, and that's another example of that in my way, holding their representatives accountable even if they won't show up and things like that. So this is, the people standing up. It's and we've been talking about that for some time rather than expecting a savior to come. So, oh,
Yeah,
Jupiter.
see, so that Jupiter is exactly on his Uranus, which is a planet of disruption, and he has been engaging in maximum disruption. But there's a personal impact of this as well. If you use a Placidus house system, which I use, Uranus rules his house of health. There's something else going on. Don't need to change it. But
I can.
there's just remember that. Okay, so there's a health piece to this.
Mm,
Look at Mars at 27 Cancer. It's just moved across Saturn and Venus in his 11th house
mhm,
of group associations. This is Congress. This is the Trump organization. And Venus in the sky and Saturn are in an exact trine to all of that. This to me says that it's really likely that a female
mhm,
government entity is going to go after him for money laundering, after him for stock manipulation, after him for insider trading that has been going on in Congress. So just this to me says
mhm.
James is on it. Watch. Something will come from that.
And just can I add as well,
Oh,
while
please.
you're on the Saturn and the Venus, well, Venus, particularly his Venus, Saturn today makes an unbroken flow aspect to his natal Saturn. But I think this is going to show that the activation aspects activate. They're not always all good or all bad. We have to remember the whole picture of what's been happening. So to add to what you know, Kathy just said about Mars having gone over this, today Saturn trines unbroken flow aspect is Venus. Then when Venus goes direct, Venus on April the 20th, incidentally, Venus will trine his Venus exactly again on the day that transiting Uranus makes an aspect of opportunity to his Venus. And then Saturn quincunxes Mars. April the 20th is a big day of change for him in many ways, I think. And mostly because these aspects are, a lot of them are repeating, okay, or activating other aspects that we've had before. So,
And this full moon actually tees that up, because look at the degree.
mhm,
The full moon is at 23 Aries Libra, exactly
mhm,
T-squaring his Saturn at 23 Cancer. So there's equal pressure, and this is coming out of the money houses, money and resources, pressuring whatever has been going on. There will be consequences. There will be ramifications. You may think, no, I am saying yes.
yes,
That
I mean it's
this day,
with the yeah, all about money, and relationships with
right,
particular women, and also I think about Saturn being kind of like the man-made laws rules because
right.
he's breaking them.
Every damn day. But this is
Mhm,
like presaged by uh, a Koch brother and Leonard Leo filing suit against him. I think this is an indicator of support starting to break away, of support
mhm,
starting to fall away. Not just Rand Paul saying this is enough, we're going to not do this, but just watch. This is the beginning of the congressional underpinnings that he's had start
mhm,
to crumble, start to collapse. And just do not forget that Uranus up there in the 10th house of public, it's his public life, has
mhm,
battered his the midheaven 3 times now. It's now exactly, it's moving into an exact sextile to his Venus. It's currently exactly, it's in the midpoint between his Venus and transiting Saturn. Very, very technical ways of saying something is shaking up in money, and that there are possibly hidden enemies playing a role. Saturn in the seventh. Open enemies, I mean, sorry,
mhm,
open enemies playing a role. Saturn in the
mhm,
seventh. Bringing enemies upon yourself because of it. Saturn in the
mhm,
seventh. This is major, this is big, and it's got many other things that will continue to hit it, as Louise pointed out as we go
mhm,
into this. And she's also added what I was heading toward, which is all
mhm,
goals, part of this. That the fixed star that represents beheading is right there in the midst of all this. And this could
mhm,
this could be the seeds of something being toppled. We've And remember that while this is, as this is playing out, Mars goes back to it where it was on November 5th. And
mhm,
later in the month, it's going to make the same aspect to Pluto that it did just before. Watch
mhm,
this space. This is a recipe for more and more information coming out once Mercury moves into Aries, meets Neptune, meets the planet of deception, and then is in an opportunity aspect to Pluto in Aquarius, technology. Just, this is a recipe for something that's been
mhm.
talked about a lot erupting into a thing.
And just to mention something Cassie said about this feeling that we're on these twin timelines almost at the moment. It will appear from a lot of the news that he's still doing his thing, and that's where we kind of have to look at what's happening underneath, and the news that always isn't always in the main news about people, like how many people have read about, I had, but Rand Paul, fighting against the tariffs and things. I don't think I've seen that being, not that I watch much of it these days. I do watch to see what they're talking about, but I've not seen much talk of things like that on kind of MSNBC or CNN-ish kind of news. It's more about the horrors kind of thing. So that's that twin timeline thing. So try and look, read beneath the headlines, look for the other news that's not in the news kind of thing. Yeah.
And there's one more thing I'd like to say that will take this back to the first
Mm.
comment that I made. Now, when we
Mm.
first put these two charts up, I mentioned that Jupiter on top of his Uranus, and that in the house system I use, Uranus rules his house of health. In this house system, Saturn rules his house of health, and Saturn is in play in this chart. Now, why are we bringing this up? Because on today, on the 11th, he's got his appointment for his physical, they say, at Walter Reed Hospital. I think with this lineup, we may not be
Mhm.
told about it, but there's something that is not business as usual, either in the news it
Well,
gets or in the reason that he went.
I'll tell you another reason why I think that's so. Chiron is transiting through his eighth house. That's often secrets, hidden things, all kinds of things like that. Is making an exact aspect to his sun today on the 11th as he goes to the Walter Reed.
And it's squaring his Saturn.
Yeah. So was yeah. So just the exact aspects as well, though. So it's applying to square, which means Chiron is moving towards the exact square with his Saturn. So that's in play. Saturn is, as I mentioned before, today aspecting his natal Venus, and Venus is a lot to do with like venal things, like spreading things and veins, and you just say,
And it could be blood sugar too, easily.
oh,
Venus, sweet things. Yeah. So
yeah, it
anyway,
could be sweet things too.
there's something that this is not a routine physical. We may never know what, but this is not a routine physical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So he's under pressure, which is probably what I'm going to call this video when I send it.
I hear Freddie and David.
And me too. I've
In
been
the
playing the
background.
song, in my head for a long time. So did you want me to move the chart to April the 20th to kind of, because I know people are worried about that day.
Sure.
Let's just move it with that chart. So I actually don't think much is going to come of it personally, but what about you?
I think that so much chaos has happened in the last week of things being changed without telling advisors that they're changing.
Mm,
I think that the handler situation is different than it was.
mm.
So,
That doesn't mean I don't think he might try, though. I think he
oh
might
no, I
try.
think he won't be allowed to. I think he won't be
Mhm.
allowed to.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Other people will stand up to it, but Jupiter's kind of almost on his north node by that point. I think he'll be like pushing for it for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, we might not see it. So if those people listening are not quite aware of what's happening, it's the day that uh, Christy Nome, and so she's DHS Secretary, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth are due to meet or come back with a report that could include a recommendation to invoke the Insurrection Act. So
because of an
there's
invasion
lots,
order, supposedly.
yes, because of the yeah, there's lots of coulds and maybes and things in that, but of course everybody's heard the words, you know. Um, but look at where Mars is as well. By then, for him, it's in his 12th house, which is kind of more hidden enemies, if you like, as well, or more people coming out of the woodwork. I would kind of suggest to stand up to him and say, no.
Yeah, and look, the Sun Mars square is still really
Hmm.
close at that
Oh, it
point.
is. Yeah. Hmm.
I bet there'll be a court order that is very unhappy making because it's in the ninth house of the courts.
Yes. Yeah. Because there's going to be immediate court, you know, court litigation against it if he tries, you know. So,
Isn't
mhm.
it interesting, look, that Pallas Athena and Jupiter are moving ahead almost in lockstep because they're both at
Yeah.
19. They were both at 17 at the full moon, and now they're both at 19. Um,
Well, because Jupiter's only really just started to gain speed after that retrograde. So yeah, they've been traveling together, and they are at the moment for this time. So, which also means that Pallas Athena is going to come up and trine his North Node aspect, his
this
North
is
Node.
so Pallas Athena is strategizing. It is the feminine aspect of war, but not running at people with swords. It's using the mind and
It's
plan.
yeah, yeah. It's using strategy instead. Good strategy and planning, and yeah, and often, using the tools you've got available to you rather than just brute strength kind of thing. So yeah, courts, the people's court, whatever, in Aquarius. Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, so I think just overall looking at this, I think it might look as if he's going to try and do it, but I just think things will say no. Interesting though, look at this, Kathy. The North Node will have moved because I use the true calculation of the nodes for people who,
Right.
yeah. So it's moved off the degree it's been sat at during this stuck period of Venus retrograde, Mercury, all of that, and the eclipses, and it's moved back to 26 degrees, and Saturn and the North Node are about to be conjunct, but it's almost exactly, I knew I left Vesta in for a reason. Vesta
Yeah.
is the state as well. It's kind of like the hearth of the state. So that, to my mind, says no as well. No, we're not going to let you do this kind of thing.
Look at the moon. The moon's at 29 Capricorn. That's where Pluto was on November 5th. That's where Pluto
Mhm.
was when Mars opposed it for the first
And
time.
yeah, and earlier in the day, of course, because I just picked a time. And it would have passed where Pluto last stationed direct in the sign of Capricorn, apart from that last degree. Um, but there's lots of activations for things that have been being transformed, challenged, the collapse, things like that, all of those things. Um, yeah, and that's really earlier in the day going to also aspect the nodes. So, mhm.
And one other point of hope. Okay, so I'm sorry, Saturn at 26 Pisces on top of the nodes at 26 Pisces. You might think, oh, this is a fated lockdown on the people, except it's in a sextile to Algo up there
Mhm.
in the if something is attempted,
Mhm.
this is more than blowback on him. This is like opening worse than opening a can of worms. This
Mhm.
just could precipitate what many of us have been foreseeing as the inevitable removal.
Hmm. Yeah, it could, for sure. And then, well, I don't want to look too far ahead, but we do have the third Mars opposition to Pluto coming up as well. And I kind of, and the second one, the middle one, was right on the election, right? So
Now,
2 days
the
before.
first one was 2 days before. The second one was on January
Oh, yeah.
5th.
Yes, it was the first one that was 2 days before the election. So that's a finishing story as well. So, just to kind of add, we'll probably look at that more going ahead because, we
Right.
don't try not to get too far ahead. But, you know, I know it doesn't look like it, but if you kind of look at all these things that are not working, people are fighting back, people are blocking things, courts are blocking things. Even the Supreme Court has denied him some of his requests. They're not even hearing some cases. But because there's so much flooding the zone, as they call it, which feels very Pisces to me as well, him flooding the zone or them flooding the zone. Um, you know, it's taking a while to kind of uh, shift and turn the tides, but Pisces is very watery. I think the tide's turning very much so now. Mhm.
I just had one other thought with the fact that the sun is in the ninth house and
Mhm.
Mars is in the 12th house of hidden
Mhm.
things. Uh, there are other warring possibilities. I mentioned we've got troops being moved to Panama. What's that about? And there have been all kinds of ships that have been moving to a Gulf near Iran. There are other ways he might attempt to take some kind of military action around this time. And two of them
Mhm.
one way might be internationally and in a kind of backhanded way with that Mars and Leo there. Um,
Mhm.
but there are a lot of indicators here of it being stopped.
Yeah, there are. That just even to the simple thing of Mars and the sun being in fixed signs, it's like people go, no, and dig in kind of thing. Fixed signs can be very stubborn. So Taurus and Leo I'm talking about here. But they can be stubborn in a good way too. It can be like, nope, we like this the way it is, thank you. We'll keep it that way. So yeah. Mm. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to look at? Did you want to look at that shot around the world chart
Oh,
or?
maybe just a tiny bit for interest. I looked briefly at the chart for
Mm.
and we don't know the exact time it happened. And again, this wasn't actually the really first shot, but it's the one that's captured in mythology and poetry. So it
Mm.
has some validity to it. That was April 19th, 1775.
I've
And
left it round his chart because Mars was right on his Mars.
isn't that interesting?
I know.
Well, look at the
Yes.
moon was in Sagittarius.
Oh.
That's really funny. Anyway, what immediately struck me about this chart is that Uranus is in Gemini, which it will in the sky be entering in July. So
Mhm.
that to me says of the people standing up and going, no, you don't, and taking action. So if you're, and notice that Mercury at 2 degrees Aries. So Mercury was in
Mhm.
basically the same spot in the chart where it's going to be next week. It's moving into
And
Aries.
which is also the degree of that new Venus star point that we just had on March 22nd. So,
This
you
to
know,
me is incredibly, I'm sorry, I just stepped on you. Uh,
no, it's
of a resurgence of energy of people en masse standing up and saying, no, we're going to do something about this.
mhm.
It's very empowering, listeners, viewers. please.
It is, and also look who's there, Pallas Athena again. It's almost like, it's what he's trying to do is going to just more and more um, invite people to rise up and see. We see more and more people who voted for this regime regretting it. For many reasons, not just this person. Remember, it's a whole administration. You know,
The top of the chart. Louise, look at the very top of the chart. I just saw that.
Venus.
So money played a big role, shot around heard around the world. Remember that the colonists were getting sick of having to pay money and not getting their voices heard. Does that sound familiar? Not getting their voices heard
Oh
and
my
have
goodness.
post on
Oh,
them. And what is happening again?
and even to things like oh, what's his name, Vought, or whatever his name is, who the one of the authors of Project 2025, talking about, well, we're going to bring all this manufacturing back to the US. So all those little screws being screwed into iPhones, oh, but it's all going to be automated. So it's not bringing jobs back. So it's not bringing any money back. People are going to start to hear those things and think, okay, how is this going to help me then? You know, you know.
Well, notice that Algol at that time,
Mm-hmm.
moving into a sextile to Trump's Saturn,
Mm-hmm.
there's something about
That memory of that time.
Randall. You picked a great date for the artist artist protest. It could be very, very, very effective. So I will be
Oh,
sure to put this in there because it's artists
I'll
at the
be
top of the
sharing
chart.
it too. I've just seen it.
Artists
Yeah.
at the top of the chart. Artists,
Mm-hmm.
Venus in
Yeah.
Taurus. Oh, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Artists. Yeah. Artists, women, creative people. And remember, we're all creative in different ways. So this is not just about people who make their money through art. This is just about being creative with it, I think, as well. Like we started off with,
Mhm.
yeah. Hmm. So, if you want to go out and do the protests, and we talked about the risk of it being a lot more feisty, be feisty in a strong way. Shall I
Make a
stop this?
sign that the wire services are going to pick up.
Or buy yourself a t-shirt that says something like this.
Oh, beware, for I am fearless and therefore powerful.
Hmm. Yeah, there's many ways of rising up and expressing your views without attacking or without responding and reacting to, those that go, oh, losers and all things like that. I've seen loads of that out there too.
I think
Ah,
it's enormously optimistic. I hope some of you are coming away with that as well.
yeah, I do too. I feel very optimistic still about it, but I still want to do, that caution that, sometimes it's what we're seeing and how we are, what we're listening to, so be mindful of that too. Hmm. Because like I said, it will appear because he's still throwing all this stuff out there. Or they are, shall we say. All right.
Yep.
Well, that's all from me. Do your self-care, get creative, dance, have some fun.
Go to
You
a
know,
farmer's market.
yeah, farmers markets, you know, um, have fun coming up with creative slogans for signs to go to protests with if you want and things like that. Yeah. Okay. Off from
All right.
bye for now.
Bye.